Some people can be talked into almost anything: guilt, pressure, flattery, whatever it takes. Other people sit through the exact same tactics and simply don't move. Not because they're cold, not because they're suspicious of everyone, but because somewhere along the way they built specific mental habits that manipulation just cannot get through. This video breaks down 13 of those exact habits, one at a time, so by the end you'll actually recognize when it's happening to you, and know precisely what to do about it in the moment. Habit 1. They pause before reacting to anything emotionally charged. Manipulation almost always relies on speed, catching you while you're still processing, before logic has a real chance to catch up with feeling. People who don't get manipulated build in a deliberate delay, even just a few seconds, a single breath, before responding to anything that feels urgent or intense. That tiny gap is exactly where clear thinking survives. Rush past it, and you're reacting to someone else's script instead of your own honest judgment. Habit 2. They immediately notice manufactured urgency the moment it appears. Act now, decide today, this offer disappears in an hour. Real decisions rarely require that kind of pressure, and manipulators know it, which is exactly why they manufacture false deadlines constantly. People who can't be manipulated ask one simple question the instant urgency shows up. What actually happens if I wait 24 hours instead? If the honest answer is nothing serious, the urgency was never real in the first place, only a pressure tactic dressed up convincingly. Habit 3. They stay a little cautious around excessive, sudden flattery, especially from someone who wants something specific from them. You're the only person who really understands me. You're so much smarter than everyone else here. Genuine compliments feel warm and specific. Manipulative flattery feels slightly oversized, arriving right before a request. People who don't get manipulated still enjoy a genuine compliment fully, but they quietly notice exactly when flattery shows up suspiciously close to someone asking them for a favor. Habit 4. They can say no without drowning it in guilt or lengthy justification. Manipulators love a person who feels obligated to explain themselves endlessly, because every extra sentence is another opening to argue, negotiate, or wear them down completely. People who don't get manipulated keep it simple. No, that doesn't work for me. No further debate required. This isn't rudeness, it's precision. The less room left for negotiation, the less room manipulation actually has to work with in the first place. Habit 5. They resist the urge to over-explain themselves when questioned. Manipulators often push hard for a detailed justification, not because they genuinely need one, but because a long explanation gives them countless small threads to pull apart and twist later. People who don't get manipulated learn to answer briefly, sometimes even without a specific reason attached at all. Because I said so isn't rude here, it's a boundary. The fewer details offered, the fewer places manipulation actually has to grab hold and start unraveling things. Habit 6. They quietly notice when someone's story keeps shifting depending on who's listening. The version told to you doesn't quite match the version told to someone else, and small details change slightly every time it gets repeated. People who don't get manipulated aren't naturally distrustful of everyone by default, but they do pay attention to consistency over time. One inconsistency might genuinely be nothing. A repeated pattern of shifting stories almost always means something real is being carefully managed and hidden underneath it. Habit 7. They can hold a boundary even while someone else is visibly upset about it. Guilt tripping only actually works on people who believe someone else's disappointment is automatically their responsibility to fix immediately. People who don't get manipulated can genuinely care about someone's feelings while still keeping their own decision exactly the same. That's not heartlessness at all, it's a clear understanding that being disappointed and being wronged are two very different things entirely, and only one of them actually requires you to change course. Habit 8, they trust actions over promises, every single time, without exception. Manipulators are frequently excellent talkers, generous with reassurance, quick with apologies, confident with future commitments that somehow never quite materialize. People who don't get manipulated quietly track what actually happens afterward instead of what was said in the moment. One broken promise might be circumstance. A consistent pattern of promises without matching follow-through is simply information, clearly telling you exactly what to expect the next time around. Habit 9, they don't cave simply because everyone else in the room seems to already agree. Everyone thinks this is a good idea, so why don't you? Social pressure is a genuinely powerful manipulation tool, because disagreeing publicly feels uncomfortable for almost anyone involved. People who don't get manipulated can tolerate that discomfort without folding immediately. They ask themselves privately whether they'd still agree if literally nobody else was watching or weighing in, and they trust that honest answer far more than the room's temporary consensus. Habit 10, they can recognize when someone repeatedly plays the victim to avoid genuine accountability. Real hurt deserves real compassion, always, without question. But some people consistently use the appearance of hurt strategically, specifically to dodge responsibility or redirect blame elsewhere whenever they're actually confronted. People who don't get manipulated learn to notice the pattern over time, not the single moment. Does accountability keep somehow landing on everyone else nearby except this one person, again and again? If so, that's rarely a coincidence happening by chance. Habit 11, they separate someone's tone from the actual content of what's being said. A gentle, soft, caring voice can still deliver a genuinely manipulative message, and a blunt, sharp tone can still deliver honest, useful truth worth hearing. People who don't get manipulated learn to strip away delivery and examine the actual words underneath it. If the tone were removed completely, would this statement still make logical sense on its own? That single question quietly exposes a lot that a soothing voice alone would otherwise successfully disguise. Habit 12, they ask direct, clarifying questions instead of quietly filling in the gaps themselves. What exactly do you mean by that? What specifically would that actually look like in practice? Manipulation often thrives in vagueness, in comfortable assumptions nobody actually confirmed out loud together. People who don't get manipulated close that gap immediately by simply asking. It feels slightly awkward sometimes, briefly, but it consistently removes the fog that manipulation genuinely depends on to keep working effectively behind the scenes without ever being questioned directly. Habit 13, they trust a genuine gut feeling even without solid proof yet fully in hand. Something feels off here, even though every individual sentence sounded perfectly reasonable on its own. That instinct is often your mind quietly processing dozens of small inconsistencies faster than conscious logic can actually keep up and explain clearly. People who don't get manipulated take that discomfort seriously instead of immediately talking themselves out of it politely. They slow down, ask more questions, and wait for real clarity before ever committing to anything further. None of these 13 habits require becoming suspicious of everyone around you, or turning every single relationship into a quiet interrogation. They simply require slowing down, staying honest with yourself, and trusting what you actually notice instead of immediately explaining it away for someone else's comfort. Pick one habit from this list, the one that felt hardest to hear just now, and start practicing it deliberately this week. The rest builds naturally from there, one honest, clear-headed decision at a time, starting today.